It's no accident why bad NBA teams continue to stink for decades. No progress, no growth, no excitement, dry with absolutely nothing. Year after year, not being deep enough in the lottery to land a superstar talent, just okay for the 7 and 8 pick, only to end up underperforming out the league within 5 years. At least in 2023, teams like the Knicks and Kings finally have figured it out, drawing excitement from their fan base not seen in over a decade, playoff optimism, not having the most talented squad, but the right pair of guys who will compete, leave it all out there. Before 2022, both teams considered the laughingstock of their conference. New York, from the Stephon Marbury days, to Carmelo Anthony, Phil Jackson fiasco, to the Jeff Hornacek, David Fisdale, Mike Miller, what the fuck is going on late 2010s, and now having a functional team with a franchise point guard. Sacramento went from the Bibby Weber era, 12 head coaches later, 11 failed making the postseason, ending a record-long 17-year playoff drought, the dark times of the DeMarcus Cousins era, to constantly hiring the wrong coaches. Now Mike Brown, De'Aaron Fox, and Sabonis to the rescue. First time the fan has been this excited since the mid-2000s. Unfortunately, still 7 teams super mismanaged over the last 10 years, some of whom had superstars and playoff success only to screw it up heading to 2024. These franchises still don't have a real identity, no sense of realistic approach, teams you wouldn't count on to win a ring next 2 to 5 years. Starting with the Dallas Mavericks, despite making it to the conference finals 2022, after a disaster of this past season, the Jalen Brunson days felt like 4 years ago. GM Nico Harrison done a solid job getting bigs, players the team desperately needs, from waving the towel final day of the regular season, despite still not being mathematically eliminated. Cuban and his emotions gotten the worst of the team, only to backfire. Luckily, the starter gamble forward Kyrie Irving signed to a new 3-year deal, with speculations he'd leave, having the chance to extend Brunson 4 years $55 before going ham in the 22 playoffs. Cuban failed to learn from his Steve Nash free agency mistakes. Had it not been for Nowitzki winning the 2011 title, Cuban's name in the top 5 worst owner discussion. From immediately getting rid of Tyson Chandler, freed up cap space, praying to land superstar Darren Williams or Dwight Howard, from wasting away Dirk's final seasons, giving 1-year deals to old players, from making the 8th seed 2014 with Monte Ellis, old Vince Carter, and Devin Harris, took eventual champion San Antonio to 7, only for Dirk to kindly take a pay cut, failed to land Melo, picked up Chandler Parsons, got back older Tyson Chandler and JJ Barea, then the Rondo Rick Carlisle debacle, lost 4-1 2015 to Houston, got rid of Chandler a second time, didn't resign the leading scorer Monte Ellis, failed to sign DeAndre Jordan, who initially agreed to a 4-year deal before his Clipper teammates locked him out the house, picked up Harrison Barnes and Andrew Bogut only cause Golden State signed KD. Golden State made room for a big-name free agent before making cap space, something Cuban failed to learn. Dirk got his 30k points, ending his final years with losing seasons, traded for Luka in the draft, gave up Harrison Barnes for nothing, had max cap space in 2019, ended up with DeLon Wright and Seth Curry, gave Kristaps Porzingis a 5-year max, relied on Dwight Powell to be the starting center, traded Seth Curry for Josh Richardson, only to trading Jay Rich for Moses Brown, extending Maxi Kleber, who got hurt right after, trading a late first for the disastrous Christian Wood, signing JaVale McGee only to get benched and barely playing, failing to replace Brunson's skill sets, to forcing panic signings in Frank Campazzo, Kemba Walker, and Isaiah Thomas. On the bright side, as long as the team has Luka, might single-handedly help the franchise overachieve, could become the best player in the NBA soon. The Chicago Bulls only made it past the first round once the last 10 years, no playoffs 5 of the last 6 seasons, stuck in no man's land, the Zach LaVine trade rumors too obvious, missing a big piece of the chemistry puzzle, 35 games of Lonzo Ball in 3 combined seasons, the promising floor general whose career might very well be over. No franchise has had worse point guard luck over the years, from the Gerpax era, dysfunctional front office, Jerry Reinsdorf, notoriously known as a terrible owner who doesn't even truly love basketball, said he would trade all his Bulls championships for one White Sox title, fired Tibbs, who didn't see eye to eye with the front office despite taking LeBron's Cavs to 6 games, to hiring Fred Hoiberg, to the players not respecting him, no culture, the messy Rondo, D. Wade, and Jimmy Butler fiasco, team up 2-0 on Boston before Rondo's injuries, instead of running it back, all of a sudden hit the rebuild button, signed Cristiano Felicio to 4 years $32 million? Basically free money for a non-NBA caliber talent. Since trading away Butler, franchise's player development an absolute travesty. The failed progress of Doug McDermott, Denzel Valentine, Bobby Portis, Larry Marketing, Chris Dunn, and even Wendell Carter Jr. Paxson having zero scouting or front office experience prior to becoming GM, neither did the hated Gur Foreman. Got rid of Taj Gibson and McDermott for campaign, waived Spencer Dinwiddie back in 2016, drafted 2018 late first Chandler Hutchinson, who already retired, after firing Hoiberg, downgraded to promoting the unlikable Jim Boylan. Many players complained about marketing regress, the Mirotic vs. Portis punch fiasco, Wendell wasn't properly used, Gerpax always played it safe in free agency, never swung for the fences, questionable medical staff, an absolute travesty. Team decided to stick with Gerpax over Jimmy and Tibbs. Butler 2023 coming off his second finals appearance as the alpha dog. Thibodeau's 2 postseason, 3 years with the Knicks, huge credit turning around that franchise, and Gerpax destroyed the Bulls to the max. Got rid of Marketing, who's seen as a franchise guy in Utah now, traded away Carter for a 2021 first, turned out to be Franz Wagner. For Nikola Vucevic, signed Lonzo Ball to 4 years $80, only to have more knee problems. Team in contention for #1 seed early 2022 before Zoe's injuries. Franchise now a mess without him, having 3 scorers who need the ball in their hands, no defense, a weak bench. Patrick Williams and Kobe White hasn't developed. Absolutely nothing more than a play-in team, paying Zach LaVine 5 years $215, nothing more than a borderline all-star caliber player, but treated like a franchise player similar to Giannis. Realistically, team will be lucky to even make the play-in, likely even miss it entirely. DeMar DeRozan, regular season excellent, but postseason frozen. Nothing for Bulls fans to be excited about next season. The Brooklyn Nets, from potential dynasty contending for titles to rebuild all within a year span. The D'Angelo Russell Kenny Atkinson team felt like a decade ago, but it hasn't even been 10 years since the so-called Big Four supposed to take over, giving away their unprotected picks for a risky, aging Garnett and Pierce. The Truth took his talents to Washington. Darren Williams waived. Brook Lopez stayed put, went through too many coaching changes. Mikhail Protorov sold after failing to put together a competent team. On to the Joe Tsai, Sean Marks era, started with hope, drafted Jared Allen, finally traded Lopez for Lakers D'Angelo Russell, established a good culture, lovable fun team, good enough to make the 2019 playoffs, attracted big name free agents, Kyrie and KD both linked to Knick rumors months prior. But with the Stars' massive ego, Marks felt he had to do what the players wanted, fired Kenny Atkinson for the zero experience friendly Steve Nash, dealt with the whole Kyrie debacle. The Stars basically ran the team, paying washed up DeAndre Jordan 4 years $40, started over Jared Allen. Team got rid of the important Allen, knowing Kyrie unreliable, decided to trade for the disgruntled James Harden. Big Three 13-3 together overall. Harden basically carried the team with Durant hurt. James blew out his hamstring after. Kyrie's ankles ruined in Game 4 gave the Bucks just enough to beat Durant by himself with a one-legged Harden. Durant's big toe ruined part of his legacy. Ridiculous mandates and politics forced Kyrie from playing home games. Harden acting like a drunk toddler, demanded out only to get the useless Ben Simmons in return. Swept by Boston, Marks didn't fire Nash till several weeks into the 2023 season, elected to have Irving and Durant stay put. The control of player empowerment absolutely destroyed the team. Marks and Tsai make the fatal mistake, letting the Stars dictate the team, Durant being Kyrie's enabler. Most of the distractions weren't even basketball related. While some celebrated the team finally being free of toxic personalities and drama after both got traded, from contenders to rebuilding. Trading away a generational player like Kevin Durant, team won't be relevant for at least a couple more years. The Minnesota Timberwolves, having just made the playoffs 11 times in 34 years of franchise existence, the only superstars to have won a postseason series with the franchise, don't want anything to do with the team. Tells us all we need to know. Team went nowhere with Kevin Love. Although not as bad as the post-KG era, having countless of bad lottery choices, Andrew Wiggins was supposed to be the savior. Then came number 1 pick Karl Anthony Towns. Bright future, good individuals, but couldn't pair up team success. Even hire Tom Thibodeau. Young core of Wiggins, Towns, and Zach LaVine put up good stats, but lacked team success. Then came the Jimmy Butler trade. Team nearly missed the playoffs entirely and collapsed after his injury. Cat and Wiggins, 2 laid-back players. Team won 47 games, but head coach Thibodeau, also president of basketball operations, drafted Chris Dunn only to barely play him. Signed plenty of his former Bulls players, created the nickname the Minnesota Timberwolves. As soon as Jimmy demanded out, and seeing the young Larry Marketing and Zach LaVine flourish, team sabotage half their future. Wiggins continued to regress after Tibbs giving him a 5-year max. Butler embarrassed the whole team at practice. Tibbs thought he could convince Jimmy to stay, but owner Glenn Taylor wanted him gone. Got back Robert Covington and a couple forgettable pieces from Philly. Brought in the horrendous Ryan Saunders. Towns dealt with injuries and family hardships. Traded Wiggins for D'Angelo Russell. That experiment didn't work out. Drafted number 1 pick Anthony Edwards. 2022, a great season on the rise, but a first round loss due to Cat's thinking. Team Connolly traded half the team for Rudy Gobert. Chemistry issues, now looking like one of the worst trades of the decade. Teammates fighting, another first round exit. Towns trade talks intensifies. With the new CBA, nearly impossible to keep Cat, Gobert, and Edwards after 2024, despite the undeniable talent of Ant-Man. As soon as Towns and Gobert still there, team might make the playoffs, but no chance competing with the best of the West. The Charlotte Hornets, Jordan's tenure as owner finally over. Dating back to the Al Jefferson Kemba Walker days, constant draft screw-ups, offered 3 first-round picks by Boston for the 9th pick in 2015. Jordan turned that down only to draft Frank Kaminsky. 2 postseasons, 2014 and 16. Still no playoff series won since 2002. A case for being the most miserable franchise. At least Minnesota had a player in KG's magnitude. But finally some optimism after drafting LaMelo Ball. Back-to-back play-in losses, having multiple players arrested for various reasons. Gordon Hayward being a part-time player. Many despised the Brandon Miller pick when Scoot Henderson the higher superstar potential. A franchise legacy of mishaps, misfortunes, and having everything go wrong. LaMelo already heading into year 4, PG Washington question marks. It's time the franchise should have real goals in winning. No more playing around, heading into year 5 post-Kemba era. Many still don't believe the team's heading towards the right direction come 2024. The Washington Wizards, an absolute joke of a franchise, no 50-win season since the 70s, finally came to their senses, realizing Bradley Beal couldn't be the guy to carry the team, but it's their fault for giving him such a contract with a no-trade clause. Last couple years, stuck in no man's land, didn't get anything valuable in return. Put themselves in the stranglehold from the awful Ernie Grunfeld to Tommy Shepard. A new GM on the horizon, team stuck with the light-skinned bros. Team's future actually looked bright with Wall and Beal at their healthiest. Having vet Paul Pierce, a couple second-round appearance, but the continuous bad contracts, giving average Otto Porter the max, and average Marcin Gortat 5-year $60 million, struck out on Kevin Durant 2016, only to overpay Jan Mahimi 4-year $64, a traditional limited backup. 2017, team reached its ceiling. John Wall received Supermax. Afterwards came the injuries, the devastating Achilles, never the same, combined with terrible financial decision making. Traded their first round pick for Bogi Bogdanovic, who left as an unrestricted free agent, turned out to be way better than Porter. The pick they gave up turned out to be Brooklyn's Jared Allen. Could have kept their 2014 second round pick Jordan Clarkson, but traded him to the Lakers for cash. Having no young talent, overpaying unnecessary guys cost the team's demise. The Russell Westbrook year, exciting rental, but a typical first round exit. A mid-30 win team last 3 seasons. The mid-3 of Beal, Kuzma, and Porzingis. Got rid of former lottery pick Rui Hachimura for Kendrick, how much impact? None. Fans enduring decades of boring mediocrity, one of the lowest fan attendance, bad decision after bad decision, never swinging for the fences, there won't be many national televised Wizards games come next season. The Philadelphia 76ers. It's been a decade since the process, still zero conference finals appearance, to Joel trade rumors already, an absolute travesty! One of the NBA OG teams since the Syracuse National days, lots of comparisons between this franchise with the NFL's Dallas Cowboys, from one disgruntled point guard to another, from the Sam Hinkie process, getting rid of Drew Holiday, having Michael Carter-Williams run the show, even missing out on several high picks, the Nerlens Noels, Jahlil Okafors, and Markelle Fultzes of the world, a possible 30 for 30 documentary if Embiid was to leave about the failure of this process, to the most embarrassing tank job, 3 straight below 20 win seasons, not recognizing the right talents, plus awful free agent signings. The firing of Hinkie allowed Jerry Colangelo, Brett Brown, and Elton Brand to take over. The future couldn't have looked brighter after the 2016 draft, taking 6'10" Ben Simmons, viewed as a generational prodigy with LeBron James comparisons. No more tanking, it appeared, until Simmons injured his foot in training camp, out for the year, landed the number 3 pick, but traded with Boston to land number 1, took Markelle Fultz, a potential dynasty in the making, but Fultz oddly forgot how to shoot, a bad shoulder injury, super limited, made the second round, a step in the right direction, acquired Jimmy Butler from Minnesota, instant contenders. After a year and a half, traded Fultz 10 cents on the dollar for Jonathan Simmons, and luckily eventual future pick Tyrese Maxey. The closest Philly came to true success, Game 7 buzzer-beating loss to Kawhi's Raptors, but future still bright until Jimmy Butler decided to take his talents to South Beach, problems with the front office, and the team favoring Ben Simmons. Could have had Mikal Bridges, but traded for Zaire 13 total game Smith, an indefensible move. Looking back, pressure to pay zero-time All-Star Tobias Harris 5 years $150. A terrible decision, pairing Al Horford with Embiid, zero spacing, swept out the first round bubble, fired Brett Brown only to hire the controversial king of 3-1 shivers, blew an embarrassing 26-point Game 5 lead to Atlanta. Ben Simmons still hasn't recovered from passing up the open dunk Game 7. Embiid himself also melted, 16 turnovers those last 2 games. Tobias also underperformed, an awful go-to guy, an all-time choke job. A disgruntled Simmons refused to play. The patient Daryl Morey held him till February, landed James Harden. Of course, 2 more first-round exits, playoff Embiid getting hurt again, both underperformed, Rivers fired, Harden crying out, wanting out. Franchise watched Jimmy take a less talented Heat team to 2 finals. Tobias angry about fans willing to trade him for a Koki. The process led to all-time chokers. Simmons, Harden, Embiid, Harris, and Rivers won't be considered title contenders come 2024. The priority of the team, keeping Joel happy, time ticking. Will the Sixers ever get past the second round, for Christ's sake? Honorable mentions, the Pistons, a clear rebuild in mind, will still lose lots of games but has young guys to work with. Same goes to Orlando, a terrible run team for years but looks like they have plenty of rising stars. The Portland Trailblazers would have been on this list a couple months ago, but with Dame Lillard looking to get traded anytime soon, team will go on full rebuild mode. Easily one of the worst managed franchises since 2016 offseason. And the Phoenix Suns, all of Robert Sarver's tenure to the Steve Nash days, all the way till 2020, but now at least they have a shot to win it all. Thanks so much for watching this video. Which of these teams the worst managed the last 10 years? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.